Good morning. My name is George Morrill, and I'm going to call this regular term meeting of the B County Commissioners Court to order. It is 9:01 a.m. and it is Monday, April 12th, 2021. We're located at B County Commissioners Courtroom, number 110, 105 West Corpus Christi Street, Beeville, Texas, 78102. That was the call to order. If everybody would please join me in standing while Mr. Willow recites a prayer for us. Mr. Willow?
Let us pray. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, please go before us today and in the new week that's ahead. Help us soar like eagles and to rise above any storms or problems we may incur. Help us to remember to wait on you so you can renew our strength. Help us to release the things we can't control into your hands and to live in the fullness of your joy this week. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Now, before we move on, it wasn't intentional to move the flag.
I decided to. I noticed somebody moved it. I should have moved it earlier.
Yeah, everybody else. Yep.
I'm good.
Thank you. We have some visitors in the courtroom this morning. We have Ms. Burkhart. Thank you for being here this morning. I think we'll hear from you in a minute.
Thank you.
Mr. Woods, we have you here this morning. Thank you, sir. We'll hear from you as well in a minute. And Ms. Gonzalez, it's always good to see you, and I'm pretty sure we'll hear from you in a minute as well. Thank you so much. So, please. So welcome. Are there any other visitors who would like to be recognized this morning? None? Okay. Moving on, agenda item number 5, Commissioners Court opening remarks. Forgive me, I forgot who goes.
My turn?
Well played.
Awesome.
Commissioner
Do
Lenny.
you like that? Had a few things. Mr. Martinez, a guy there in Blueberry Hill, we had a real bad issue with the trash and whatnot. And so instead of going out with an environmental officer, with Mr. Guerrero, and writing up a violation, what we're trying to do is talk to these people and help them out any way possible to avoid having to do that. So we helped him pick up a bunch of trash and haul off for him. I talked to Ray. There was a safety issue on the tree line. If you're coming from YAR on the 351, the stop sign off to the left, people couldn't see trucks and especially 18-wheelers coming. They were concerned about that. I got with Ray on that. Had a guy call that manages the Dollar General on the south side about some illegal dumping of couches next to the dumpsters and whatnot. Said he couldn't get anyone to help him. Took care of that issue. And then just a reminder, in the near future, we're going to walk from Lightburn down to Jackson on Corpus Christi Street, cleaning up both sides of Corpus Christi. The sidewalks are horrible with grass and whatnot growing in the street and the sidewalks in between. And I had a constituent ask me about that the other day, and what can we do about it? And I simply said, well, you have a weed eater? Yeah. I said, well, me too. Let's go walking. So we're going to do that. I'm not sure exactly what day it is, but as it gets closer, I will announce that, on Facebook and whatnot. If there's any volunteers want to come out and help. That's about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenny. Commissioner DeWitt?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Let me expand a little bit on what Commissioner Lenny was talking about on the grass in the streets. My spouse and I were driving around the other day, and we noticed the same thing, not just there, but all over Beeville. And one place that's really prominent is as you're coming down Highway 59, I think, what is it, Inez or Archer, that comes into 59 over not too far from the hospital. If you're from out of town and you're driving through Beeville and you look down these streets and you see grass growing on curbs and one thing or another, it's got to impact you whether you realize it or not. So the city, I know they've been real busy, but it's possible they could get a maintainer and scrape it off and spray it with herbicide. Just an aside, I appreciate you bringing that up. In the precinct, our road and bridge administrator has been working very hard to get the mineral collection station going. We've made more progress. I understand we're waiting to hear back for a final yes or no from the TCEQ, and we're pretty sure it's going to be a yes. The electricity for the compactor is, awaiting hookup from San Pat. And, if you haven't been by there, go by and take a look. The road and bridge crew has worked very, very hard. It looks fantastic. Everything is lined up. Everything is perfect. We're just waiting now for the final go-ahead so we can move the compactor and get started. I anticipate probably in the next 60 to 90 days, we should be operational. And, we'll let the public know when it's time to start moving from the Normanna collection station to the mineral collection station. Something that, we talked about in the last Commissioners Court meeting, that, we had a meeting at the, elections office and a meeting at the former sheriff's office, and we'll discuss that in more detail later, but we've had some contractors look at some things, and, we spent quite a bit of time in each one, and, we'll discuss that when we get to that particular item. And we had an issue in, Toledo with some trucks going the wrong way down the street. We're working on that. Everything else, the solar farm out of between Mineral and, Pawnee, they have probably 40 or 50 people out there working now. They have a myriad of equipment, maintainers, loaders, one thing or another. It's coming along very, very well. It's, if you will, it's on the top of a hill about, I'm guessing, 3 miles north of Mineral, right off of 673. You can't miss it. It's an open field area anyway. It's kind of exciting. The visual impact from the solar panels won't be near what the windmills are. And it should be operational if everything clicks later this summer. So on that note, Judge, I will pass to my colleague to the left.
Thank you, Commissioner DeWitt. Commissioner Fedius?
Pretty busy week last week. Toured both the old new jail and the new jail, and both I was looking at the punch list that ECM has provided for us for the new jail, and it seems to be winding down. And yes, they are. This is getting fixed. That's getting fixed, but definite humidity problems and AC problems are. I mean, they're just. I mean, the temperature might show it's right on the thermostat, but it's definitely big problems. And I invited Commissioner Linney to go in and take a look at some of these things. But you can walk into one and it's sweating in one, 2 doors down there. Those guys are trying to cover up with blankets, towels, and everything because they're freezing. So we're trying to get that addressed, and had a phone meeting with ECM, and we're moving forward with that. So that's one that had several meetings with BDA on some incoming business that looks promising, and then I had a couple of calls with Road and Bridge, and Mr. Gonzalez is taking care of those. I'll pass to Mr. Haggard.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's, yeah, I too attended a salary meeting, this week, with Commissioner Fedius, and Ms. April. Then, you know, I'm still having, a few phone calls coming in, some on the wind farm, some on the old jail, the second, third old jail. Then, I have Mr. Gonzalez is working diligently with me to find some volunteers to adopt a county road. I think he's working on some individuals for Corrigan, which has been a huge, I get a text or an email just about every other week from some individuals. And these individuals don't live on Corrigan, they own property way in the back, but they own a substantial amount of property, and they're from Houston, and they're concerned about all the trash. Then, of course, on 631, I want to commend the Sheriff's Department. They have worked with the wind farms, and they are now sitting out there monitoring the roads. The drivers have been already following the rules anyway, but I guess with their presence out there makes a big difference. Some of the residents are very happy to see that. Also, there's a narrow spot on 631. Those signs were actually put way down the road, and they've moved them right next to there, and they put markers on that narrow piece of road. And it's not the road is narrow, it's the side that's left off, so it's just a drop off. And so if you were to just kind of ease off of there, you would drop off. And that's going to be part of what they're going to take care of when the wind farms go to move out and they refurbish the road. They're going to work on that too. I too had a meeting at the Toledo jail. Walked through it, looked at a bunch of items on there, made a few notations. took some of the information that I have and went through it. Had a phone meeting with the Tyne Water Board and Grantworks, and I think the judge was on that call also, going through with their water systems, what they're asking for, new water tank, new well, pumps and everything else. That's moving forward. Had that with the Thornhoff engineering group. They were on the conversation too. A very good meeting on that one. That's moving forward. Last thing on my report will be that today at noon we have a BAP meeting, and we'll be discussing a lot of things that were discussed at BDA. So, other than that, that's all I have. Normal things going on.
Thank you, Commissioner Haggard, and thank you, Commissioner Fadias as well. That's great. It's been a wonderful couple of weeks. I'm sure there's been a lot that's happened, but I think we'll just stick with what the commissioners highlighted, and I appreciate all the work that they've done, as well as our various departments that have assisted both they and our constituents with issues that are popping up time to time. And if you are out there, one of our constituents in B County, or you own property in B County, and you have an issue, figure out who your commissioner is and give them a call and let them know. The only way one of the only ways, or one of the best ways that we have to be able to identify an issue. It may be a big problem for you. It may be something that you've been frustrated with for a long time, and it could be that we just don't know that it even exists. So please don't hesitate to reach out to commissioners. If you're not sure who your commissioner is, you can always call my office at 361-621-1556, and we'll get you to the right commissioner. So thank you all once again very much. Moving on to agenda item number 6, public comment. Is there any members of the public who wish to address the court at this time? Okay, hearing none, moving on. Agenda item number 7, the following items are of an administrative nature. Commissioners Court has been furnished documentation on each item, and all such items may be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a commissioner or county judge.
Move to approve as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I had a few, corrections on some of the minutes, and I presented them to Mr.
Can't hear anything stick out.
No, not at this time. You have any questions?
One thing I did notice too, we're having a pretty big turnover in personnel at the jail.
Yes, sir.
I'll leave it at that.
I see some vehicles
Oh,
broke down too.
yeah, that's, thank you, Commissioner, for mentioning that.
Robbie's requesting
Oh, yes,
transmission for his truck. and then
$1,500 for transmission. I think when we look at our budgets, when we start having to spend that kind of money on vehicles, I think we need to look at the mileage, the year of that vehicle, and look about if we can possibly replace it, because once you start with one thing, next thing might be tie rod ends, whatever. So just a thought, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Commissioner, because that is community affairs vehicle, $1,500 for transmission.
Yes, sir. And we have those lists for budget, to let the court know about, mileage and, the years of our fleet. So
And there was
that you can
another one
review.
in the sheriff's office what broke there. So budget item, line item. Radios or something, no?
They did do a line item transfer.
There's one for that mobile radio operation.
The mobile, that was for the service, that was for the new jail, and they didn't bill in a timely manner. And so, that was for the jail. But that was for the new jail, and it was a
Something
bill
we left out
timely.
or what?
It was $1,760 that was billed originally when they put new radios and everything in the new jail.
Right,
A year later, they invoiced us for it. All that stuff all that money's been gone. It's part of last year's budget for construction. So, I did PO out of our current budget, and I'm asking for a lot of transfer to get the money back.
To cover. And that one was a minimal, because the other one, we have been doing, transfers from the transfer line to the new jail. Just, I think 1 or 2 we've done.
okay.
It shows mobile radio.
Mobile radio, yeah.
Yeah, so the repair of them on the.
$3,000 line item transfer. increasing M&R equipment account line, by $3,000 from 6,000 to 9,000, reducing your small equipment budget by the same amount. It's a jail. I think it's on that page.
Yes,
Is this something else that you're talking about, Chief Deputy?
no, it might be together with that. I think there was two issues in that one.
The $1,760 should have been out of construction.
It probably didn't even come up on.
We had to pay for it.
Maybe that was before.
That was requesting that we put back in our account since it came out of our account.
Yeah, that's probably not, didn't even come up, this is something else, I think. Thank you. Any
We're
other
good.
questions or discussion? Okay, Commissioner Haggard, there were some corrections that are, with Hope with respect to the minutes. You amend your
I
motion.
will amend my motion to add the corrections to the minutes.
And I'll do my second also.
Okay, so the motion and second have been amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Hang on real quick. Let me write a note. Okay, moving on. Discuss and consider action on the following items. Agenda item number 8, Community Supervision and Corrections Department, CSCD, request for permission to construct an overhang above the front door of the CSCD Adult Probation Office building here in Beeville, Texas. Mr. Woods, thank you for being here this morning. Mr. Woods is the Director of Community Supervisions and Corrections Department. While you're speaking, Mr. Woods, you're more than welcome to remove your mask. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, the reason I asked to be put on the docket this morning over at the adult probation on Hillside, we are wanting to put in a little covered awning in front of our front door at the department. To obviously benefit people when it's really hot, when the sun's out, and also obviously when it's raining. It'll probably be pitched this way to kind of be consistent with the floor plan. We have consulted with somebody. We're doing a similar thing in our sitting office. And as you can see, Commissioners, this is the front of our building. And we just simply want a little overhang in front of that front door. Nothing major, but just enough to, speak with them when they're outside and whatnot. Of course, our department will take care of the cost. We just wanted to try and get it done this summer if it's permitted.
I'll make a motion to approve of the comment, Judge.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Woods, one thing that I'm a big proponent of is it needs to be this big, make it a little bit bigger.
Yes, sir.
Because it's easier to do it the first time. God, I wish we'd have put an extra foot on this side or foot on that side.
I agree. Don't be surprised if there's a big cover over the whole house.
Well, and then, if you would, Commissioners and Judge, Mr. Woods and I went over how those buildings occurred in the first place and the arrangements of the offices, one thing or another, and he said the offices are fine, the building is fine, but they do have an air conditioning problem right now, but they've already talked to John, so it's in the works. So,
Pretty constant problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've had that for 4 or 5 years, I know.
and those are my comments, sir.
We've had it shortly after we put the buildings in.
And the one that was in
I
charge of it
think
no
the one
longer.
that was in charge was precinct 1 commissioner.
Yeah, who was? The previous one.
No,
It's all right,
Commissioner.
It's in my sandbox. I'll look.
You think, okay, all right.
Well, we're very happy with the space. We're not having any issues with the space.
Good.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
all
Woods.
my comments, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner DeWitt. Mr. Woods, I'd ask that you coordinate with, Mr. Izagiri with our maintenance department, just especially when your, construction, company comes in to start, just to make sure that,
Absolutely.
and if there's any other, county employees that need to, make sure that they have the opportunity to see what the construction plans are, John, we can make sure that we get them there. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Mr. Woods. Thank you.
Keep it in mind that once you do that at your building, juvenile may say, you know what, that's really nice. We'd like to have one over here too, so be ready for that.
Yes, sir.
And that could come out of your budget as well.
Absolutely.
I will try to do everything I can.
Thank you so much, Mr. Woods. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Agenda item number number 9, request to decommission the old jail located at 1511 East Toledo Street, Beeville, Texas. This agenda item came up, we have annually, and Sheriff, you just interrupt me when I say something wrong, but annually, the Texas Commission on Jail Standards does a surprise inspection of jails in the state of Texas. And because the new old B County jail has not yet been decommissioned, they gave us notice last week or the week before that they are still going to inspect, and that new old jail still needs to meet the jail standards, current jail standards, in addition to the new jail. And so this agenda item is really limited just to that component. We're decommissioning for the purpose of it not going to be used in the future as a jail or any type of jail facility by B County until further notice.
Move to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Sheriff Southmain. Agenda item number 10, presentation on American Rescue Plan, ARP, Act of 2021. Commissioner DeWitt, this is your item. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, Judge, Commissioners, we've been talking about this $6-point-something million that B County will be receiving. This outlines exactly how much, when, and why. And we have Ms. Natalie Gonzalez here from Grant Works that's gonna give you all the particulars and the details and show us how we can spend that money. Please, ma'am.
Sure. Well, I don't know all the ways you'll be able to spend it, but I'll give you as much information as I have as of now. Good morning. I'm Natalie Gonzalez with Grant Works. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. So, as Commissioner DeWitt just mentioned, yes, these are going to be some windfall dollars that are coming down from the United States Treasury Department. It is directly associated with the American Rescue Plan Act that was signed by President Biden a few weeks back. So it is considered part of the relief bill, okay? Every county and every city in the state of Texas is receiving an allotment. Well, every pretty much large city is going to be receiving an allotment of funds based on your population and a few other factors. So, as Commissioner DeWitt presented a moment ago, $6,315,781 is the allotment for the county that's going to be coming through. These dollars will have to be fully expended by December 31st, 2024. You will receive approximately 50% within 30 to 45 days from the date that the bill was signed into effect. However, we've received new information that there's a possibility that could be a little bit longer. It looks like for counties, now again, this is all very new, so a lot of the information that we're receiving is slow to come because they are still trying to sort of coordinate what the total uses are going to look like specifically down to the very last detail, and also how they're going to be managed. So there's still a lot of information we don't know, but it's coming to light very soon and very quickly. As I was kind of mentioning, what we have found out is that the counties will have to submit some form of a drawdown request of their initial funds to the U.S. Treasury. It's our understanding that, very different from the CARES Act, okay, where the CARES Act flows through Texas Department of Emergency Management. For counties, these funds will flow directly from the United States Treasury Department. So that means you won't have a go-between. You will potentially have to request your initial funds directly from them. Now, what that request is going to look like in terms of logistics, like, is it just a simple letter on county letterhead that is submitted by certified mail? Or if there's a specific document that's going to be drafted that they're going to send to you in order for you to do this, or if it's electronic, that's not yet known. But we do know a request will have to be made. 50% of those funds, like I said, will come in the initial days. A year later, the other 50% will come down, okay? There is an understanding that administrative services are going to be needed because this is a lot of money, and we understand that the uses are going to require such assistance. For example, the reporting on these funds are going to be monthly, not quarterly, as with most grant funding, which is going to impose a little bit more strain administratively on communities, on counties, because it's a lot more work. You're not gonna be looking at submitting for reimbursement funds initially. Now, with the second 50%, that's something that we don't know yet. That could change. That could be where they want to see how you use the initial first half of the funds before it's justified that they submit the other half. That's a possibility, but we don't know yet. With that in mind, the uses of these funds, they are broken up into 4 major categories. Okay, the first category being you can use it to provide assistance to any local business, residences, or nonprofits. To me, that's a catch-all, because what does that assistance look like? Well, we simply just don't know specifically yet, but that is one of the categories. The other category would be to provide, you can reinvest in a government service which was lost as a result of lost revenue. So you can't reimburse yourself for lost revenue, but you can re-implement that service. Specifically, what that's going to look like is still yet to be determined. But we do understand that that's going to be something that has to be tied to a service, and how that's justified will be, also described at a later time, hopefully. We know with the CARES Act, there was very minimal guidance, and so we're just really hoping that this bill is going to provide us a lot more guidance than what we saw with CARES. Another potential use is going to be to provide premium pay to essential workers. So when I hear that, I think, there have been a lot of overages and overtime expenses as a result of COVID-19, especially with police departments, fire departments, and in some cases, your medical staff, but, or even possibly your essential staff working for your counties and so forth. So that's still something that's being determined, but it's definitely language that's in there, okay? And then the last but not least, which is everybody's favorite right now, is they are gonna allow for infrastructure projects. Infrastructure projects are gonna be water, sewer, and broadband. You will not be able to do a specific road project. We're trying to find out, we're trying to expand into our knowledge of the sewer to see if they'll include, drainage, because if drainage is allowed, that seems to be a really big factor, a really big deal. A lot of people need that more than they need the water. But of course, every county is different. So, we are working, with a lobbyist group in Washington, D.C. right now, and so we are trying very hard, submitting as many questions as possible, trying to get answers, because a lot of people have those questions. There's been a lot of false information that's been circulating as well. A lot of the agencies that support both counties and cities are doing all kinds of trainings and webinars right now, trying to discuss this. There have been at the judges conferences, the one that just happened recently in, I believe it was Lubbock. They discussed this there, and there was a lot of false information that was given. So, I just want to let you all know that we're here and we're doing the best we can to find out all the, nitty-gritty details about this fund. It is still developing, but it is known that you are going to receive these funds. You will have to use them by the end of 2024, which is not a whole lot of time. A project, if you use it for infrastructure, will have to be developed and managed. Environmental surveys will have to be conducted. You will have to have an engineer to help us develop that project. Labor standards will have to be followed as far as, as well as David Bacon law. So it's going to be a huge undertaking, no matter which way you look at it. Even if you were to split those funds to where you use some in a certain area and then funnel another amount into another project, it's going to be a huge undertaking. So what we are suggesting and recommending at this time is that counties move forward, and also, even cities too, begin the process of your authorization, because your authorization will have to happen in order for you to move forward into the next phase, which would of course be your procurement phase. The actual procurement policy has not been completed and is not readily available. So that is not something that you can move into. However, the beginning step in that is the authorization, and once authorization is given, then as soon as the procurement information is made available, the county can begin their process without having, to be held up, coming back to court to request authorization. Now, of course, it is completely up to you, commissioners, and you judge, to, determine if that's something that you feel fit to just, vote in favor of today. I know this is a lot of information to digest, so you may very well feel that this is something you all would like to discuss, perhaps in a workshop at a later time. But again, this is just something that we're coming to learn, so we're letting you all know. And if there are any questions that you come up with, if you would like to let me know, we can send that through to our lobbyist group to find out, because we have a slew of questions that we are submitting for a lot of folks who have a lot of information. In fact, we're even reaching out to congressmen at this point, trying to get as much information as possible. So, so I just want to open that door for you. We're here as an advocate to also try to get you as much information as possible if you have specific questions. And that's pretty much it.
One question already.
Mhm.
This broadband
Mhm.
in the county, like for a rural school like Pawnee or something like that, that broadband might apply to them? That would be a question that we could put on your list to ask.
Potentially, yes, yeah.
And then on the water and wastewater, we may or may not have wastewater or water problems in the county, but I know the city could use some assistance. Can we use our money to help the city? In other words, it's in the county,
Mhm.
maybe they need a new sewer plant. We could use $2 million of our $6 million to help them build a sewer plant.
That's also a possibility.
Just another thing to put on your list.
That's another possibility. Like I said, the actual action plan for the use of those dollars is still being
Right.
developed.
We understand. And then,
So, but it's absolutely a good question.
and then
Yeah.
to designated administrator, which would be Grant Works or whoever,
Mhm.
is that something we can do today, or do we have to wait on that, Judge? Because it sounds like we need to have something going right now.
You can
Does it go out
authorize,
for bid, or is it just?
I don't know, that's what
you
I'm asking.
can,
What's your next thing on the agenda?
you can authorize to begin an active procurement process, which an active procurement process is, like you mentioned, Commissioner Farias, putting out an RFP for administrator, putting out an RFQ for an engineering firm. And then you would, you solicit for bids at that point. And that's something you can do now, is the authorization, because of course you'll require authorization in order to move into that phase. The one thing you can't do yet, because that's not ready or available, is the actual act of beginning the procurement process itself, because that guidance is not yet available.
Well, I think that, the next item is the issue request for authorization. So is there anything we need to do on this item with you?
No.
Okay.
Number 3 on the premium pay, I'm sure you had questions on that, on the
There's
essential
a lot
workers.
of questions on that.
I'm sure, okay, but is that like a catch-up kind of thing, or is that you're gonna get one lump sum, or is that the kind of questions you're getting asked, or how can you do that, or do you squirrel away some, can it be over a period of time pay, or what?
Those are questions that are being asked. We have not received answers for those, and I fully, believe that the reason we haven't received answers is because they still have not yet determined how that's going to be done. I think that right now, the federal government is still trying to work out the kinks as far as the specific, logistics of how these dollars are going to be used, and that's part of the issue. We're not getting answers quite yet.
On that, okay,
On
because
that.
it could go from the law enforcement to the volunteers to the maintenance, I mean, all these people putting in overtime all over the place to try to
Right.
keep up.
And would it be
Right.
retroactive only from the date this happens? I mean, in other words, let's say that the court decided to pay the comp time for the sheriff's office
Mhm.
for the time they go COVID, and it's paid on, April 15th.
Mhm.
And then they say, okay, as of this date, you can pay overtime, but we've already paid it. That's a question to ask.
Yes.
Because it could affect when we pay said overtime.
Correct. And now keep in mind too, for some of these, the auditor's office may be fully well capable of handling, sorry, April, some of these funds, because it may not be something that is, you need an
Right.
administrator for. But in most cases, you know, I would think that, yes, you are going to need that guidance because it is such a big undertaking, especially with all the reporting. And of course, that'll be up to the, you know,
The
the county.
administrator would be the gatekeeper also, just to keep us within bounds or keep us within the rules.
Yes,
And the administrator would be paid from the funds or?
from the fund,
Okay,
yes, Commissioner.
very good.
So that would be, of course, did you have a question, Commissioner Hager?
Yes, my question was, and I think you made it early in the statement, not only counties, but don't cities fall under the same plan?
Yes.
Okay.
So B County's receiving an allotment, Beeville, City of
City of
Beeville
Beeville's
is
receiving
receiving
some.
an allotment as well.
From what I read early on, their allotment is less than $500,000, which was surprising to me.
I actually have the number on my phone, and I don't have it up here with me.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was
Well,
less
I was,
than
unless it's
500,000.
changed, I was real surprised. We got some information from Congressman Bella's office,
Uh-huh,
and it listed us, and then it held everything in this district. And when it showed the city of Beeville, it was very low.
it was very low.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to lie to you, Commissioner DeWitt, I have looked at so many of these numbers, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I didn't think it was that low, I thought it was a little bit more, but, and I did have a conversation a couple weeks ago, with their city manager. So it's something that the city's also talking about, you know, how they're gonna be using their funds as well. Whether counties and cities, can marry their funds and put them together for one big joint project, that's yet to be, you know, seen in the terms of plan of action. I don't see why that wouldn't be something that could be considered, but, you know, of course, we have to wait for, there's a lot of things involved to make something like that happen, and we have to wait for more details to come out. But yes, Commissioner Haggard, the cities will be receiving their own funds as well.
Yeah, and I do know it's not gonna be the size of the counties either, so.
Right, right. So,
I'm good.
Commissioner Lenny? Ms. Gonzalez, is the ARP Act not been signed into law yet?
it has been signed into law.
When was it signed?
I wanna say it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago,
So then,
middle of March-ish.
so,
You're trying to
so
anticipate when it'll be
May,
coming.
first of May to sometime in May is when
Yeah,
theoretically on 45 to 60 days is when they're gonna,
theoretically.
the 50% drop.
Initially, our understanding was that they were just gonna send an automatic check or direct deposit. But in communicating with some other counties that we've also been visiting with about this, they've received direct information from their congressmen telling them that they will have to send some form of letter or document requesting the initial funds.
And Treasury is the understanding to manage that
Yes.
process.
The cities will not be doing the same path that counties will be. And I think that this is maybe a route they've taken because there's so many funds involved. It's gonna be a little difficult for entities within the state to manage the county amount and the city amount, so they're splitting it up. So the counties are staying with the US Treasury, the cities are gonna go through some state entities. So their funds are going to go directly from US Treasury to the state, and the state, we expect them to assign the responsibility of disbursement to one of the state, agencies. So we're thinking maybe Cheatham, again, possibly not. So they will be responsible for dispersing funds to the cities. And again, how that'll look, we're not sure yet.
Ms. Gonzalez, I was incorrect. I looked up the amount. It was $2,789,372 for Beeville.
I thought it was
I was
more than that.
I was looking at Bay City or somewhere else, so I apologize, but
No, it's okay, I'm glad you looked it
it's
up.
almost 3 million.
Yes,
That's good.
On the first tier that you said, assistance to business and nonprofits, is that like the PPP assistance program that they can prove a 25% loss from one year to the other?
we don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know, that's why I was saying, to me, it sounds like a catch-all, because it might be able to look like a bunch of different things. Especially since they just kind of threw everybody else that wasn't in those other 3 tiers into that one category by just saying, you know, residents and nonprofits and local businesses. So, we're not entirely sure what that's gonna look like. And I'd hate to speculate at this point, because I just don't want it to go on record and be incorrect.
So we need to put you on a regular item once a month here, once every other week?
Possibly.
We have multiple meetings a week.
Yeah, we're really breaking
Program.
new ground every day.
A lot of counties are starting to get together and do workshops on this to start discussing, you know, how they could use these funds. And as new funds information becomes available, we're learning more and more and more, really, not only from our lobbyist group, but we're learning so much even from our clients. Because as our clients are talking, everybody's starting to sort of reach out and network with one another, and information's just exploding. So we're just, we're a hub right now of information, and we're trying to just get it evenly distributed to everybody, whether we're, you know, used as a service or not. It's still certainly good information for the county to have, because one way or the other, you know, you will be receiving expense. I talked to a county the other day who said, Natalie, I'm not even counting this because we're just not gonna get it. We're gonna have to give this money back. And if you haven't even received it and you're already worried and how you might be able to not use it or use it. So, it's certainly being viewed as a blessing, but also a potential burden, because the amount of time you're going to be given to use all of these funds is very small. It's a lot of money. No doubt, in my mind, there should be some way to use it as quickly as possible. You mentioned theirs was $2 million, and when I spoke to John, he seemed to have all kinds of ideas, and he said, you know, I'm excited to have this money, but immediately looking at it, I now realize it's really not enough.
Don't go that far.
You know something else? Every city, every county's getting this money. And there's only so many contractors out there, so many engineers can do these jobs.
That's true.
And once they're tied up on 3 or 4 jobs, they can't handle it anymore.
And that's gonna be part of the dilemma. You're
Yes, ma'am.
you're thinking ahead, so that's true, and that's a good thing to think of, because we saw that here recently with the, community development block grant round. So many engineers, and contractors have been tied up with, well, not contractors yet, but so many engineers were tied up with the big mitigation dollars that came through general land office, and they picked up so many accounts that way, that when it came time for the CDBG block grant round through TDA, there were a lot of engineers who did not respond to RFQs, which was insane, because that never happened, but they're too busy. They don't have enough arms and legs to manage these projects, so they're just not taking them on. So you're right, taking that into consideration, if there's any thought that there may be some form of an infrastructure project being, you know, that you're gonna use these funds for, I would then highly recommend that you move with your authorization and get the ball kind of rolling. You're gonna wanna secure an engineer as soon as possible, since everybody around you is gonna be needing to do the same. And it could potentially pose a problem in terms of securing yourself a good engineer to manage a project or a large scope project.
Because thousands will be going for the same thing. Thousands. Not just a few,
No.
thousands, just in Texas.
I was gonna say, this is
Just in
nationwide.
Texas, thousands.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. It's gonna be like pandemonium.
But if they'll just write us a check, I guarantee you this commissioner's court will know how to spend it.
I heard bonuses.
Bonus.
Wrong county.
Ms. Gonzalez, thank you so much. We always appreciate everything Grant Works does, both officially for us and informally, such as this, and your role in that as well. It's much appreciated, so thank you. Are there any other questions
No,
at this time?
very good, thank you for your time.
Mrs. Cantu, with respect to Grace and your office, have y'all, do you have any input or thoughts with respect to this ARP money that may be coming down?
Well,
Is what we're gonna be considering the next agenda item, something that is probably timely and efficient?
I would say so. Yes, sir. If the court wants to go that route and already start, I would say so, yes, sir. Because that's gonna be, with, like Natalie said, with this amount of money, it's really a huge undertaking, and I think having an admin to assist would be beneficial to the county.
Any other questions, comments, discussion items on agenda item number 10? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 11, authorization for the County of Beeville to issue requests for proposals, RFP for administrative services, and requests for qualifications, RFQs for professional services for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Commissioner DeWitt, this is your item. You have the floor again, sir.
Judge, commissioners, we just heard what's gonna happen, and all this money's coming. I think we would be remiss right now if we didn't go to this step and issue requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, and I'll make such a motion, to do that immediately.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, any further discussion? And so with this action, this is Can 2, we're going to, push out requests for proposals, so there'll be a time period for us to get those done officially.
Yes, it usually takes, 3 weeks, up to a month, sure, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Glad we're moving forward on this as well. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. My apologies, I should not have intimated that we were approved before I asked for y'all's approval. Thank y'all for not making a liar out of me. Moving on, agenda item number 12, B County Elections and Emergency Management Department's proposal for building use. This was tabled from the last, agenda. Are we ready to, just have a discussion on it?
Judge, I think we are,
Okay,
let's-
you have the floor, sir.
let's do this. Let's get a motion and a second. That way we can have a very interesting discussion here. I'll make a motion that we do move forward, to allow elections and emergency management departments to, utilize the former jail for office space.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? A second?
We don't even want to discuss it?
I'll second your motion. I have a motion and a second. Commissioner DeWitt, you have the floor,
Commissioners,
sir.
we all know what's going on. Let's take the mask off so I can talk.
You may.
We spent some time in the elections office. I know Commissioner Farias is getting some bids, and he may have those today on what it may cost to renovate that building. We had a contractor there. Then we needed to talk to electrical contractor. One thing and another needs to be done. I don't know whether you've been able to get those bids or not, sir. They're not complete. Is there anything at all that we can talk about on the bids?
No, they haven't gotten back from their loaded, and I think he went up to, Pettis to go look at something over there, so he's got his plate full, the contractor I'm using there. And, the only one that's turned in a bid was the guy for the, gutter, I believe, right, John?
Yes.
Okay, we had one guy there, so to keep the rain off those doors on the, south side, and he's the only one that put in a paper bid right now.
Was it,
The other one was a no-show, they didn't want to bid at all, period, so.
I know we had plumbing problems, and when you have plumbing problems with a building like that, you can't use the facilities. And to fix it, you've got to tear out the floor. Then I know Commissioner Hager and I spent some time at the former jail on Toledo Street. Commissioner, do you have anything you'd like to share with the court on that?
Well, I walked through that building, and of course, I looked at a lot of it. There is, and I followed the report. I want to thank Ms. Mornix for giving me her view on it. But the quote that you gave, to be honest, I do not believe two things. One, I don't think it's going to come in at 25,000. I think it's going to come in well above that. Also, I don't think we have, and I'm speaking out of turn from Mr. Gary, I don't think we have the manpower to do the work that needs to be done inside of there. Removing walls, putting in windows. Yeah, a little bit of patchwork on the walls, we probably can do that, but I don't see any of the rest of this. That building, has plumbing issues also. It was noted from the very beginning when we moved into it, when our old Sheriff Bob Horn moved in there, he didn't even want the building. Looking at the front of the building, when I walked out, if you'll look at the columns in there, they're cracking all the way up. It really doesn't matter what you do to that building, you still have a bad foundation. I mean, we're just gonna, once we start adding money, once we start tearing things out and moving things around, I just see more and more problems. I personally, I do not want to put any money in this building at all. My opinion, and this is only mine, we need to clean it up, we need to put it up for sale as it sits, because as it's always stated in the past, one man's junk's another man's treasure. Somebody may want that building for something, and some of my phone calls this week has been on that building and the fact that we're trying to spend money on it. And we've already told them we build a new jail. So I'm just not for moving in that building at all, for any reason, and that's my opinion.
Okay, well, something I'd like to read into the record, and I know that, and I've read the report also, but the newspaper did an excellent job, and it's entitled Elections Emergency Management Offices on the Move, with a question mark. And the part I'd like to highlight for the record, it says, on page 5 of a 2017 study of the former sheriff's office and jail, it mentioned the problems with the floors and walls on the jail side of the building. But when it came to the 6,800 square foot sheriff's office portion of the structure, the architect concluded that it still can be used for offices or storage. This is despite the B County Sheriff's Office outgrowing that space. And one thing that the newspaper did, it asked folks if they had a solution or a suggestion on what we could do with the elections office, even if we say, we're not gonna use the old sheriff's office. We're gonna refurbish the current elections building. That's great. We still have to put them somewhere. And that's the problem that we have, is that we get to past a certain point and that toilet and stuff totally quits working, or a wheelchair falls through the floor. I feel like we're gonna have been remiss on doing our job. I totally agree. I don't wanna spend any money either. But we have to think about where are we gonna put these folks? And they have a window right now that they can go somewhere while this is all being done. I don't have the answer. We're looking for solutions, and that was one. I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I have not gotten the calls that Commissioner Farias and Commissioner Haggard have gotten about that former sheriff's office. I haven't gotten them. People that I've talked to said, well, y'all have to do something. I said, yes, we do, and we're trying to figure out what to do. Because inactivity is the worst thing we can do. We can wait. Government's bad about waiting until something happens, and oh my God, we got to do it today, after we get sued or after something happens in that building. And Madam Administrator, Election Administrator, is there anything you'd like to say to the court? I know that she has done a fantastic job of going through a long, detailed list of things. And ma'am, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. Judge, thank you. Laura Warning, Elections Administrator. Like Commissioner DeWitt says, if that building is not feasible, the problem is where are we going to go while ours is being renovated? And where's the money to renovate my building going to come from? So, which I think is based on the conversations we had in my office, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Britt, that we're talking 60,000 up, on my building alone and stuff. And I agree. I agree. Could it cost more than what we estimated to go in there? We looked at just basics to get in there. My statement is this: no matter what building, you're always going to have to put in upgrades and maintenance and so forth. Any building the county owns, you have to spend money to keep it upgraded and improve it and keep it functional. I mean, that's a fact of life. That's the same thing with a home dwelling or any building you do. You can't just let one sit. It's got to be maintained, and that costs money over time. So whatever you do, my main concern is this: if my building is renovated, it still does not alleviate our parking situation. We have a very limited amount of space for parking. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to look at that building over there, because of the vast amount of parking. When we hold elections, and all early voting has to be done in my office, that's why in the November election, I had to close my office and officially move my office to Expo, because early voting was required to be in my office. That's why the courthouse was always shut down for 2 weeks while early voting was going on, because it has to occur where your election administrator or county clerk is holding it to be. And so it gives us a problem there for the parking and stuff. And it just seems like invariably that's when we have courts going on or jury selections and things like that, so which is already a problem with parking and stuff. So whatever the court decides, I do, you know, I wanna do it as feasible as we can for the court and the county dollars and so forth. I just am aware that we've got to do something. One thing I do want you to take into consideration, I went to a conference a couple of weeks ago, and they are telling us that our equipment is going to have to be updated and, added, which means I'm gonna have to have more storage for equipment, because we're going to have to go to a paper audit system. That means the storeroom I have now is not gonna be big enough to hold the extra equipment that we have to have. Thank goodness they're telling us funding's coming for all of that, so don't panic. So, thank goodness they're saying that we're gonna have funding for it. It's just a couple of situations that I don't see potential for us for growth there. So, that's kind of my situation.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Are
You're
there any
welcome.
questions for Ms. Warren?
Ms. Warren, I gotta commend you. You handled one of the biggest elections that we passed all of that. You handled it. I know there was parking problems. You still handled it. We got through it.
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying is, on this building here, we could take the doors or take the windows, take them a step at a time and not make it die. If there's a soft spot, well, let's fix it. It's not gonna relocate you from a different, building or anything for the moment. Because you have your equipment secured in the room, correct? Locked.
Now, but when I have to start adding, there's not gonna be sufficient space to put it in there.
Well, I mean, I still think we need to take a look at it.
And,
Take the most serious, triage it, take the most serious problems first. I mean, if the doors are rotted, well, let's replace a door. Or if the windows are bad, let's replace a window a few at a time.
the worst part is the floor.
The plumbing, and the plumbing.
I mean,
And the
we still need to take a look at that and take it a step at a time. I don't think the solution is to move and then go into an unknown number, and that's my personal feeling as far as that goes.
And the other thing is, I mentioned this to Commissioner, DeWitt and Commissioner Haggard when we were touring the building. Right now, we currently have, or did have, party chairs that agreed to always have a joint election. If my parties come in and they say, no, we want to hold two separate elections, I don't have the facility to do that. They have to be held in my office, and I don't have a room for each of them to do that. That's why that one back room is always utilized for elections. But if they come in and say, no, we want two separate primary elections, I have to hold those separately.
And what did you do in previous?
We had joint.
No, but we had to move to the expo?
No, the only reason we moved to the expo was that 3 weeks was because of when we did the presidential election. We closed our office completely down so we could say that was our office down out there. We moved our entire office out there for that 3-week period, for the extended, for the November.
How would the new old jail alleviate that issue of,
There is an extra room there that could be utilized to have two separate elections.
is that extra room though, the proposed command center for the
No,
proposed?
sir, it's in the front, You'd have what we would say the meeting room is one, and then the other voting room for the second. So they're both there. They're actually marked, it's marked as a meeting room on that little, printout that I gave you.
As you go in and turn to the right, as you first go on the right is one meeting room, then you have the big training room further down the hall.
Okay.
Right across from the handicap bathroom.
Was the concept if, with respect to this idea on the new old jail, was it to leave the existing jail portion of the building up? Or is the thought that the county would be tearing down the old jail and then leaving
Well,
the office part of the
That was the
building?
thought, but Commissioner Haggard knows a whole lot more about construction than some of us. He said the problem you get into is the roof covers the whole thing. I'll let you, I don't wanna take your.
It's possible, and then, of course, it tells you right here, to fix anything, you're gonna need a structural engineer in it. If you're gonna tear down the jail side, which, again, I'm not for tearing down anything right now. We own a building, I think it's a good marketable sale as a building, but to tear that down, we're gonna need an engineer to look at the structure and see whether or not the rest of the roof would support the back. You may have to build a wall on the backside to support that. So I'm not sure, that falls under the engineering, and I don't have a shingle for that. I just know that, when I've seen buildings being torn down, that they usually, it's from wall to wall. It's never this portion here, that portion there. But that's, again, that's engineering that does that. But my contention was that, yeah, it's fine to leave it up and everything else, but I just see too many issues in this report, and I know a lot of them are just minor issues, but I just don't see that. I will tell you that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you made the comment, Ms. Warnick, possibly the building next door could be rented at that time for her to move into there while we fix her building. And I don't think you even looked in there yet.
I've looked through the window. I did have a conversation with Robbie Real Estate.
$1,200 a month.
It's, how much?
$1,200 a month.
2,000, a month for that and the warehouses, and my conversation with Ms. Robbie was, we did not need the warehouses, that we could not utilize that, so she did indicate that, and she also indicated that they're not only rent it, that it's like for sale.
We tried to buy it a long time ago. We tried to buy it several years ago. And I'm not saying we need to buy that one. There was issues there. We discussed them quite lengthy, but I do know that when I called, they told me, I guess they were just talking about the front end was $1,200. And so what do we, if I may, Madam Auditor, what are we spending in the bills on the jailhouse now? Name Toledo Street. I'm not gonna call it New Old. Just Toledo Street.
1746.
Okay, I know that Commissioner Farias had gotten with, AP, and they had given him a number, so, thank you, Commissioner.
And I do know that they told me that this building across the street is either a 6 to 12 month lease, whichever one you want. But again, it is still for sale.
1746 a month.
That's electricity only. Everything else, the gas is cut off. That's just, there's two separate light bills that go into that. That's the CP and other is accommodating to, one was 15 and change, the other was 200, so it comes out to 6.
But then you have water, you still have the city water and sewer.
No, it's
The
on,
water
it's
is
on, but it's not being used.
It's not being used, but it's on.
You know,
Yeah, we have those two bills that are month to month, every month.
the
But
thing
if
that we
it was
noticed
still
when we
on,
looked
we'd
at
pay it.
buying that
If
building,
it was still on, we'd be paying it.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when we looked at buying that building, there were roof issues that we looked at.
Yeah, we looked at a lot of issues,
Yeah.
and one of the issues was the price. The other issue was the amount of money we'd spend to hold that building and bring it back up to standard.
Right.
Yeah, that was two of the things that we talked about.
But, Mr. Zaguirre, I mean, I know that we're talking about this, and can you fix this, and can you patch that? I mean, what's your take on the undertaking of the?
Like, we talked, Ms. Morris and I, we talked, and, there are some things small things that we can do, as far as patch jobs, adding, little pounding in the back and stuff like that. But the rest of it would be, like I talked to Ms. Morris, big contractor jobs that I don't have manpower, don't have the time really. We're getting into our busy season now, but it's gonna be an undertaking that's gonna be something that a contractor's gonna have to look at, something that we can, ourselves.
He did get bids from,
I
like,
did get Rice to go out there, and, they gave me a quote of $6,500 just to bring, the bathroom, up to ADA standards.
Toledo Street?
Yes, sir.
and in that initial expense that we looked at, the 25,000, we had allowed it 4,000 because the quote we had gotten, verbal quote we had gotten, we doubled it because we knew it would be a little bit different going to somebody else now. So we're also, I'm not saying that's an exact figure, I'm just saying that's what we're expecting, that's what we were looking at.
Well, it seems to me that there's still some pretty strong, opinions both ways with respect to the issue itself generally, but it also seems to me that we don't have all of the various bids in, and so I'm happy for us to proceed, and I can call a vote on the motion, but it would seem that if we do vote, whether we vote for or we vote against, we're voting based on imperfect, incomplete information. And I'm not sure that that's in the best interest of the community, but, I'm just one of five.
What I would like to do, Judge, is withdraw my motion.
Okay, I withdraw my second, thank you. Is there any motions that do need to come before the court on this, or do we have any further discussion? I don't mean to shut the discussion off. Commissioner Lenny, do you have any input, thoughts, concerns?
Well, I wasn't here when all this had first taken place and with the report done and whatnot, but I have had a chance to look at it. My personal opinion is, I understand that the court voted unanimously to destroy the building. And don't think it's fair or right for the people that we undo that decision. And after walking through that building and whatnot, and looking at all the different stuff and reading the report, and I agree with Ms. Warnick that, you know, her building she's in currently does need repairs and stuff like that, and she needs bigger space, I get that. But looking at what you're actually going to spend in the Toledo Street Jail, and the problem that's going to occur, to me, you're opening up Pandora's box. And I think that there's got to be a different solution to this situation.
Thank you.
That's my take on it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Lane. Any further discussion? Any motions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. Thank you, Ms. Warnick, and thank you to the committee, the ad hoc committee that was formed to address those issues. I really do personally appreciate all the work that
And we're still,
y'all have been
we're
doing.
still
that you're
moving
still
forward, I
working
mean,
on.
it's just that,
It's where we're at right now.
Yes,
I really appreciate that, and it's good to have, I said this a lot in the last couple of weeks, it's okay for commissioners' courts to disagree with each other. In fact, that is the beauty of public government, and that is what we should be doing. This is not really newsworthy, this is 5 adults sitting around a table discussing different opinions, and trying to move forward to form consensus on what is in the best interest of the community. That's all it is. So thank you all very much for that. Moving on to agenda item number 13, review and take possible action regarding B County Human Resources policy requiring face coverings. Commissioner DeWitt, this is your item. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, Judge, Commissioners, the reason I put this on the agenda, several meetings ago, we passed a very, very strict face covering requirement for the staff, to the point of termination if they did not wear a face covering. And I think we need to revisit that now. Things have changed. A lot of people have had their vaccinations. The rates are down. Things are looking a lot better. And it's my understanding that the city of Beeville is allowing their staff to wear the face covering if they feel like they need it, and if they feel like they don't wear it. And that would be my motion, Judge and Commissioners, is to revise our policy, relax our policy, if you will, to allow staff to wear the face covering if they feel they need it, and don't wear it if they feel like they don't, and that would include elected officials. I know that several meetings ago, we took the requirement off of the public coming into all county buildings. It's requested to be worn, but not required, and that's pretty much what my motion is as far as the staff.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Let me start by saying the policy that we're talking about is the human resources policy that deals with our employees, not with the public. And the motion is to basically make face masks optional. So we would unwind our HR policies with respect that they relate to the mandatory component of if you're in an office and you're not by yourself, you have to have a mask on as an employee. Is that?
Yes, sir,
Correctly.
but I would recommend that we keep the distance requirement in place, just as a extra safeguard. That's an easy one. We're having some staff that are claustrophobic, if you will. I've had some of the people, the department heads, talk to me about it, and I think this is what we need to look at this point in time. And if things turn the other way, we can revisit this in the future, sir. But that's what I would recommend.
Thank you. And then one further question. When are our check-in stations, when does that go through? Is it end of April?
June 30th.
June 30th.
June 30th.
Okay. Mr. Willow, do you have any input?
Excuse me, Mike Willow, COVID, something.
Mitigation.
Thank you.
Mitigation, sir.
Highly serious. Question I would have is, I believe in our policy, do we still have, if the individual contacts COVID, do we still cover them for the 2 weeks? Or is that gone?
That the court kept it in place for those who didn't use it last year. They were able to carry it over to the new year, but if you exceeded it last year, then you don't have it for the new year.
So if we take away the safeguard of the mask, do we still allow, because the individual elected not to comply with the rules, do we let them take that time? It's a question, it's county money type thing, you know.
If they
So
contact
that-
COVID, I would say yes.
But if they don't follow the safety rules, that's like if you're working on a scaffold and you didn't plug in a harness or whatever, then you're at fault, and
Well-
it's not workman's comp.
What you're gonna wind up getting into, which I don't even wanna chase that rabbit down that hole, is do I have my vaccination card? I don't even wanna go there, because there are folks that elect not to take the vaccination for whatever reason.
But if vaccination is optional, you're taking the mask as
I
a way
understand.
as being optional. So
I-
I'm just throwing that out to the court, whatever you decide.
I don't think that's something that's in my item at all, sir.
Okay, and then the other, we talked earlier off the record about the 3 feet and the 6 feet distancing. I found the article, and the 3 feet distancing is for schools, because it'll allow to get more students in the school, but it still required 6 feet guidelines for the face covering. So, for the adults. So that 3 foot was for the school, unless there's another article I haven't come up on yet.
We don't have any policy regarding maintaining a minimum distance between employees.
No.
There's nothing.
No, not
We don't have any-
employees, I'm
we only
talking
have
about
the
in
only
general.
policy
In
we have
general.
is-
So,
Yeah.
but those are things I'm just throwing out, so y'all
I
have all the
appreciate it.
information.
Thank you, no, that's a good point. And,
Thank
who,
Brian.
Mr. Garza?
So, no, I just wanted to say, you know, I don't think that it should be an issue with, if an employee does contract it, I mean, because how can we prove they contracted it at work? I mean, they could have contracted it at home and then came to work, and then, you know, they're gonna be out for 14 days. So, I mean, either way you look at it, I just don't see it being feasible to try to put those constraints, how are you gonna prove it?
Right, and that would be the worst case scenario, right? You contract it at home and you bring it to work and you don't wear a mask, and then maybe more of your office mates get it. So, but we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Garza, thank you, Mr. Willow. Mr. Castillo, do you have any input, any things that you think the court needs to consider, or contemplate prior to taking a vote?
No, but, the situations y'all bringing up in regards to the, time, that definitely needs to be clarified if that's gonna be an issue, because that's something that we have to work with in our department. Who has time, who doesn't have time, who used up time, how much more time will they get if they do get sick, if that's gonna be an issue, then we would need to know definite on that.
So
A lot of employees have used up their time last year. Some who got sick this year, they had to use their own, sick or vacation time because they didn't have it anymore. What happens after that? What happens if they have no time at all? Then where does that land them?
And that would be a discussion for a future date, really, but it's really good to bring it up, thank you. Yeah, I know we made 2 or 3 policy changes over the course of the last year with COVID, so as we do unroll those, we do need to be thinking about collateral consequences and other impacts that it might have, that we're not thinking about. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion does not pass. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 14, public hearing pursuant to Texas Transportation Code, Chapter 253, entitled County Improvement of Subdivision Roads, Vernon, 2003, regarding the setting of a 25, sorry.
They're pretty speedy in the south.
Conference got me all worked up. Hold on. Yeah, thank you. Regarding the setting of a 25 miles per hour speed limit on 7th Street in Skidmore, Texas, and allocation of cost thereof. A, public hearing to consider the setting of a 25 miles per hour speed limit on 7th Street in Skidmore, Texas. It's set at 9:30 in the morning. It is now 10:15. Do I have a motion do I need to move to open or just move to close?
Open.
Need to open
You have
it.
to open
Do
it.
I have a motion to open?
Motion to open.
I have a motion and a second to open. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Public hearing is now open. Is there any members of the public that wish to weigh in on this issue? Will be my first call. Oh, yes, sir.
Say what the problem is on 7th Street?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Haggard, do you want to take the lead on this?
We've just gotten a report from 1 or 2 individuals, Mr. Gonzalez has, that, some of it is just the speed up and down that street. And it's actually from the post office all the way down that street. And without getting into personal stuff, I have a daughter that lives on one of the corners, and she states the same problem, that there's a lot of speed up and down there. And I know, and I can't speak for the sheriff's department, but I'm sure that when they're there, the speed limit is, they're just barely crawling down the road, but when they're not, and I've witnessed it myself. And it's just a setting up the sign and then giving the rights for the sheriff's department to enforce the speed limit. Because it is not posted.
Yeah, so I live on Fifth Street, corner Fifth and Mass.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself for our
Oh,
record.
sure, absolutely. My name's Tino Olaus.
Thank you, Mr. Oliveris. And yeah, if you want to stand up and you can remove your mask and kind of get you away from everybody else. And it's a lot easier to speak, I know, without a mask on.
It is tough. Thank you. Yeah, as I stated earlier, my name is Tino Olaus. I do live in Skidmore. And I was just curious as far as what was the outline requirements for putting a speed zone there, because what happens to the other streets? So I also have a lot of people speeding on my street as well, but that's not effective this time. So I guess just curious, if a proposal was made for one street, what's gonna happen with the other streets?
Well, basically, I mean, we can, Mr. Gonzalez can bring it before the courts, and we can take each street, or we can do citywide. I'm not sure if we can do citywide or not. I have to talk to Mr. Gonzalez on that one. But, limiting like stop signs, yield signs, speed limit signs, county roads, and that's always brought before court in this manner. And it's never been a real issue. I'll let Mr. Gonzalez cover some of that for me. Okay.
Ray Gonzalez, Road Administrator. The process is usually, people complain or just call the commissioner or call myself. And that road in question is the road that sits right behind all the businesses. And that's why, and there are other roads, like I think Third Street, the road next to it, which has a speed limit. So, and there's a process for it. Just put in the request, and usually we try to have 2 or 3 people call it in, and we'll just go through the process, and we can do the same on any of the streets in Skidmore, and not just in Skidmore, anywhere Pettis, anywhere.
So if the speed limit sign goes up, how does it get enforced? Who enforces it?
The sheriff's department.
Sheriff's Department?
Yes. Once it's approved by court and the signs are up, then the sheriff's department will enforce it.
Are there any plans for the other streets? Unless it's called
We
in
have,
by the
unless it's
individual?
called in, or we have any accidents, or anything that we feel like we need to, but other than that, right now, nobody's called.
Only on that one street?
Yes.
That's what I was curious, just what's driving.
But we would consider a request, if you think that's necessary, just put in a request to myself or Mr. Gonzalez, and we'll run it through here just the same way we did this one.
No, I do have some concerns for the other street, because there's a family that lives close to me, and they have a lot of small kids. And being a small community, the kids, they play in the street. I mean, I did it as well at a younger age. But, some of these cars are really moving through the streets pretty fast.
And I've witnessed that myself too.
Mr. Oliveros, do you have any objection to this particular request?
No, I do not. I just wanted to get a better understanding, living in a community, what is that gonna affect that street, which is fine, but also how does it affect the other streets in the community as well?
Do you have a concern that it will push faster moving vehicles onto the parallel streets?
The way the town is laid out, I mean, all the streets that are parallel to to 181, there's no stop sign, there's no speed limit, so it's just a straight shot through. However, going perpendicular to the highway, there are yield signs at every corner, which, that's a whole nother concern, because there's a lot of obstructions that prevent you from seeing a car coming in the other direction, and that's a whole nother issue, probably for another matter, another day.
I appreciate you coming today and speaking to us. Thank you, sir. Is there anything else?
No, that was the main thing, just trying to get clarification as far as what the really meant, and what's the process.
I'd be glad to sit down and discuss it with you.
Okay, great.
Have an opportunity to do it. I'd be
Okay.
glad to sit down.
Sure, I'll set something up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliveros. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the court with respect to this public hearing? That's my second call. I'll have one last call. Make sure there's nobody behind me. Is there anybody in the room or in the hallway that's interested in, speaking on this public comment at this point in time? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Public hearing is now closed. Moving on to subpart B of agenda item number 14, action on allocation of funds and costs thereof.
I would like to make a motion to allow, Mr. Gonzalez from his general funds to pay for the signs and the installation.
We have the funds.
Which is what is done in the past.
We have the funds.
Oh, you do have the funds?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Commissioner Lenny is getting into the game today. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? I apologize for that, sidebar. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, agenda, and thank you again, Mr. Legatos, and thank you, Ray, as always. Agenda item number 15, submission of 2020 racial profiling report for County Constable Precinct 4. Okay, this is just a submission item. It's in our packet. I think it shows 0.
All zero.
Yeah.
All zero.
Is this something do we,
It's generally
We
done.
accept
and
it.
It's housekeeping.
okay, I would entertain a motion to accept for,
A motion to accept the report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, agenda item number 16, request for comp time payout from the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Southmaid, Chief Deputy, this is your agenda item. You have the floor, sirs. Thank you all for being here this morning. And of course, when you come up to the podium, you may remove your mask for ease and communication with us.
Morning, I'm Ronnie Jones, I'm the Chief Deputy with the Beeville County Sheriff's Office. And I have some people. The first one will be the amended letter I sent in with the agenda, and it lists, approximation of the money involved.
Yes, sir.
And the second, if you don't. And the second is, well, the first one there you get now, is a comparative salary analysis, very quickly done by me. Shows 12 counties, the county judge emailed me with some questions. This is one of them.
Thank you, Chief Deputy. for
Comparative
this. I appreciate
analysis.
it.
I reached out to 12 counties. What we're asking for is a payout of comp time. It was brought to our attention several commissioners' courts ago that comp time was brought up and reminded that the department heads, when they want paid out their comp time, have to come before court, and that's what we're asking. We're currently 12 jailers short in the jail. And right now, as we said, we're 2 deputies short in patrol. We were 4 deputies short in patrol. That by itself adds comp time. People have to be there, I mean, especially in the jail. There's not a vacancy. It has to be staffed by a certain number of people, and that incurs comp time. Add to it, during last year with COVID, that's exacerbated it. Also with the COVID relief that we're doing with the testing and or vaccinations, that's all extra people out there. We have 2 guys on the street, there has to be 4 or 5 guys out there helping. Mr. Willow couldn't test it. The approximation is about $25,000 at this point, and that's what we're at.
Does that cover those dispatchers that had to work all those 24
Yes,
hours?
yes, that's the,
Just the highlights.
cumulative,
Some of the highlights on that comp time, you know, we'd have thought we would put blame on the SO, but they weren't all the SO. I mean,
No,
there's
no.
a lot of comp time in other departments, so, no, that's recognized.
Madam Auditor, where's the money gonna come from?
There's only 10,000, budgeted plus benefits on that 10,000. That's all that's in the budget in 409.
This dollars, this doesn't include the benefits.
That is not benefits, no, sir.
That is purely an estimate done by me. That's not actual. For several months, there's been, a couple of deputies positions open. For several months, there's been, several jailers positions open. And I don't know how that money gets distributed, or that's above my pay grade. I don't know.
So those, we call those lapsed salaries that possibly could pay this amount. Plus, we need an accurate amount on the benefits added back to this, the retirement, one thing and another.
And this is to take everybody back to zero, is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Is that the way the court wants to go with every single one of the employees, to go back to zero? I understand that some of them are way over, but please consider that in your motion to take everybody back to zero.
Are we
every
talking
single one.
everybody, every department, every
No,
employee in the
and,
county, or
no,
everybody?
but under the sheriff's office.
Your
and
Honor,
the
you
sheriff.
also asked me about, I brought up, their inability to take comp time also, affects their vacation time. You have to take comp time first. If you can't take comp time, your vacation maxes out every month, you lose vacation.
And that is not for all employees, Chief Deputy. I know in your department, some of the correction staff are new, so they don't have that,
They don't have to go for that
Obstacle.
vacation. Yes.
yeah.
That's not, so do we have an idea how many of those who are affected by the vacation or just?
Anybody who's been there any amount of time, over a year or 2 years, mostly the deputies.
And I know the inability to take that comp time affects their vacation, so that kind of.
My request is to be paid out comp time. If you look at your analysis of 12 counties, we're one of only two, and it's only 12 counties, or 254 counties. We're one of only two that doesn't pay overtime.
Well, not only that, our own policy says we're supposed to pay it.
Well, when a deputy or somebody quits for a higher paying job, you're paying them their overtime at that point. You're paying them the comp time right then.
But our policy right now says we're supposed to pay this.
Over a certain amount, yes.
Yes.
Do we know what those numbers are that we're supposed to have already done? Yes, sir. Mr. Castillo, please come forward. Thank you, Chief Deputy. There may be additional questions. I really appreciate that in the, comparative salary.
And I realize I spelled comparative wrong, I apologize.
I didn't notice it.
I know, that's great.
I'm Castillo, HR Director. Looking at this, when I saw it on the agenda first, I realized I was gonna be here, on the board. So I started looking at some of the numbers. I was talking with April and asked her, should I start putting something together? She said, yeah, I'll definitely do that. Looking at the two departments, the sheriff's and the jail department, really the big numbers are actually about 6 people. Okay, the rest of them, their numbers are in double digits. So if you want to pay out all those over the 120, or maybe a little closer in the 100 mark, you're looking at maybe 6 or 7 people you're gonna pay out. The numbers I have are very close to, Mr. Jones there. When looking at the sheriff and jail together, he has like 24, I believe, maybe 25. I have like 23 something, which is pretty close, but the numbers fluctuate as people use them. So even these numbers here are no longer going to be accurate after we finish our payroll this week, because some are going to gain comp, some are going to lose comp from using it. But if you just do the over 120-hour people, you're only looking at about $12,000, $13,000 for them, and then that puts maybe the highest person that's left behind at 103 hours. Now, if you want to throw that individual in there, the highest person is only going to have 93 hours on the books in those two departments. Again, I mean, if the issue's not fixed and resolved to the comp time being done, we're going to be back at these numbers again anyways. But for now, I mean, breathing room from now to then, if you don't want to pay out that larger number. Because some of the individuals in the sheriff's department and the jail, their numbers are very low. I have some with 0.01 comp time hours, 0.13 comp time hours, you know? So its numbers, half of it is actually only 6 people.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Well, the reason that is, we truly try not to incur comp time. I mean, we are on it. It can't be helped at certain levels. If you bring that person down to 100 hours, he's still losing vacation it's bad for morale. He's losing vacation every month because he can't take his comp time. He has to take 100 hours comp time before he can take his vacation.
I see the big numbers, that would be a definite, because our policy over the 120, we should be paying it back down. It doesn't look good to pay it down under 120 if next 2 weeks they're gonna bring it back over 120, you have to bring it down again. You have to bring it down either to zero or a lot below 120. But if again, there's no solution, you're bringing it back up. But like the double-digit people, they're not at 120 yet. We have something here with 14 hours, 16 hours, 19 hours, 26 hours. Those ain't even close to 120 yet. You know, who knows when they'll be at the 120?
It doesn't, is it 120 or 60 hours you're supposed to be paid after 120 days?
60 hours. Sorry. 60 hours.
So we're supposed to have paid out comp time in excess once they reach over 60 hours? How many other employees does the county
Well,
have
at
that
60 hours, they should be in front of y'all explaining why they're at the 60.
Yeah. I just don't know if we have a number and an amount.
Those are all
I understand the
the,
request we have.
those are all the highlighted numbers on that last,
Kind of paints the picture.
last port of all the comp time. Or was it 2 ports ago?
I believe it was 2 ports ago. It wasn't last port. It was a couple of sessions ago, I think, the comp time
When I
report.
saw the comp time, I was automatically looked at the sheriff's office, I said, oh, man, all the sheriffs, but it wasn't.
But it wasn't,
No,
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 definitely
Try our
not.
best to keep it down, we truly do.
They had a low number compared to all the.
Well, there's,
Recall years ago, we had a very, very high number that we paid out.
and
he does work that.
But
I
he's not the
don't
only one
think
that works
so.
hard.
I don't think it was that high. It was a big payout, but I don't think it
Seemed
was
like it
that
was
high.
78,000. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, no,
It was a, I don't, yeah, I don't wanna throw around numbers, so I'm not sure.
Next agenda, next agenda, we can be this across the board. I don't know why.
In our other departments, there's only 2 that would be an issue, and one that we're actually over the actual, state requirement, where we're gonna have to pay that individual out. So it's 240, at that point, the state says we have to pay that comp time out. And 420 for the law enforcement. We're not anywhere near 420 in that area, but we do have one in the, county attorney's office at 233 right now, maybe at 240 on this pay period.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo.
Where supposed to get the money for that? Where is it? I'm gonna be decided to pay
All we
this
have is
out.
$10,000 plus
That's
benefits budgeted, yes, sir.
For the entire county or for?
For the
sheriff's
entire
office?
county, that's what we have in Department
The thing
409
of it is,
budgeted.
the 10,000 would cover those that don't have lapsed hours. Lapsed hours could be done on a change and put that in that fund to cover that.
How many
In other words,
could we
the salaries
cover?
that aren't
How many
being
could we
paid
cover
out.
with the 10,000?
Well, 10,000 is a lot of money when you're talking about 1 or 2 people. Where they're talking about a lot of money is in the sheriff's office and the jail, but there's lapsed salaries from deputies and jailers that is sitting in a pot,
And the salary,
in the salary,
and
and it can be moved over.
that's up to the court.
That's what I mean. They
Yeah,
can be
Tell me
that's
about
up
that,
to
is that
the
a line
court.
item transfer again?
That's
or
a line
budget
item
amendment?
transfer,
Right.
yes, sir.
Would that
There's
be,
some funds there from all the ones that we haven't hired. There's open positions,
It's lapsed salaries.
but it's not being used because we don't have the positions filled.
and I know that with respect to the jail, I know that there's a persistent issue that predates COVID with respect to staffing and maintaining staff, and then the inability to keep folks on creates the necessity for your existing staff to work extra hours, so they get comp time goes up, I get that. But with respect to the rest of the county, are some of these other comp time numbers, are they relatable back to COVID and the impact that COVID has had on county operations, or is it pretty normal that year over year, these types of comp time situations keep coming up?
The one individual in one of the departments that was mentioned, that one has been paid out before, and the court did take action, to put an additional employee in that department, thinking that that would alleviate the issue, and obviously it hasn't.
is there any reason why it would make sense to, especially if we're considering a budget amendment as a requirement in order to pay out 100% of the sheriff's office request this morning, is there any reason why Commissioners Court shouldn't consider this countywide with respect to all of our other issues, so that we only have one budget amendment, that we have all of our numbers straight at that time, and that we hit it across the board? And I just don't know.
To be fair to everybody else, I agree totally, Judge. If you're going to take care of this bunch, why not take care of everybody at the same time, and we're all back to zero? I agree with you.
Well, I'd like to add that, I think that's fine, and Mr. Jones has come, and we understand his. Sheriff's Department is totally different from any other animal within this county. But I think the department heads, they have people that are above where they need to come to us first. I don't agree with just writing a check and paying everybody, because there's reasons for it.
Okay.
And I think all the department heads that are fall into that need to come to the Commissioners Court and explain why, and what we're gonna do to alleviate it, if possible. And I know you're not gonna be able to. Your department is not gonna be able to alleviate numbers climbing up and down. It's just not gonna happen.
Well, the hope is maybe during the budget
Yes,
process, they
we
might
can
be
find
able to
something.
increase salaries a little bit, and that might alleviate.
And then they help him to a certain extent. But again, his overtime, he's limited on deputies and everything else.
Right.
And I keep pointing to him, but it's the sheriff. He's limited to deputies and
Jailers.
jailers, and I understand that. We, as a commissioner, of course, we've been fighting this for 10 years, but
Is this something that a budget amendment is
We're not gonna need a budget amendment. If the court does wanna go into the salary lines of the sheriff's office or the
unexpended
jail,
salaries left
Yes,
salary?
and to
Salary
pull
right
from
here.
there, we can. If the court wants to do that, that can definitely be arranged. There really does, I mean, there
Okay,
doesn't have
so-
to be a budget
Okay.
amendment.
With respect, though, keep in mind that the minute that, you know, I'd like to see all the positions filled, but when those positions get filled, and they come again, there's nothing there.
But that money is
Yeah.
in
So
the
right now,
future.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna
that
be-
money's already lapsed, it's sitting in the pot.
We're talking about
This is
unexpended.
for months ago,
Unexpended.
we
That
haven't
is
had
correct.
positions,
Right.
that money's there.
That's
Yes,
correct.
plus benefits, so, yes, and that's a lot of the reason why we have reserves that go back in, or, extra monies that go back into our reserves, because of that reason, the turnover and the.
We have a number, we have a number of hours, and I understand the number of hours may fluctuate up and down, paycheck to paycheck. We also have a dollar, figure that, Sheriff put together for us, with respect to, based off of that number and based off of, probably a averaged out hourly component. So with respect to taking action, can we take action in general, Ms. Cantu, or do we need an actual number? Because we keep talking about benefits, I don't know what that means or how that changes.
Well,
Yeah,
if the court wants to go a certain way, it can give us direction
It's
to then
return match.
prepare a number for a line item transfer for the next court date.
They would have an accurate number then. It's gonna change from day to day to day until this point in
We
time.
stop it. And we
Right.
need to put it, we need to stop it, and so if a court action does that, it can certainly do that today, and we'll put a stop on what the direction is from the court, and then we'll put a number on that, and you'll see it in a line item transfer in a future court.
Okay, so then we'd approve it in our
In
agenda
the,
item number
7,
7.
yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Castillo, do you have anything further on this agenda item for us?
No, just, whenever that effective point is, because this is a payroll week, so it's not gonna be this week, we're not too worried about it. If it's gonna be next payroll, then we work on it then.
So what do you suggest for cutoff?
Whenever y'all say cutoff, that's when we'll do our part.
Or is there a better time than
If
another
that's
time?
the cutoff, then we're gonna put them at 0, because we don't want them using it at any point right now into the future, otherwise that number's gonna change again.
Okay,
So
so
we have to have a.
if it's the will of the court, would the cutoff date be best suited for back office accounting purposes and HR purposes to be the day after payroll day?
That's what I was thinking.
We pay through the end of the day Friday, on Friday? Is that how we do it?
No, we pay Friday, yeah. Friday's
On
paid.
Friday?
Yeah.
So Monday?
Whatever,
Whatever
beginning
April
Monday
is.
morning, yeah, whatever date that would be.
Chief Deputy, do you have anything further?
No, I do not, I appreciate the court's time.
And I think I understand the request. Sheriff Southman, do you have anything further?
No.
Okay. All right.
And this is to take, and again, please just, give guidance on it, is to take every single one, even the ones that are at, like Mr. Castillo said, 1.5, those type of numbers, or is there gonna be
I
a
think that's
guidance line?
that's the request of the SO, but I don't know that
Okay.
we've really discussed that. I don't know if any commissioners have any input or thoughts.
I would recommend we take them all to zero if it's done. And the motion needs to include the benefits.
Okay, well, I don't disagree with you. At this point in time, if the will moves anybody, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we do pay out the, sheriff's office and jail dispatchers through April 19th, 5 p.m.
No,
Uh,
no,
No?
because that's Monday morning.
This
So
Friday.
this Friday, the 16th, at 5 p.m.
Okay, April 16th, 5 p.m., to include benefits. And that a, line item transfer be made from salaries to cover the cost.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Cantu, is that covered? Does that straighten us out? We good?
Yes, that would be fine, yes, because the LIT will be on another agenda item, and so that'll be separately, the LIT.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Chief Deputy. Appreciate everybody's input. 1 minute, let me take a note. And we will move right on. Moving on, agenda item number 17, engagement letter between B County and Singleton and Clark for fiscal year 2021 audit. Mrs. Cantu, this is your agenda item. You have the floor.
The letter, is requesting, this next year for Singleton and Clark to come back to do our outside audit. And, it is an increase with our single audit that has been performed for the last, probably few years for our, TIDC, contract that the county is head of, for 5 counties. And so that is additional work, lots of additional work for our outside auditors. And so that is what that, I believe, a $4,000
The
increase.
4,000 per
Yes.
major program.
Yes, sir.
How long has Singleton, Clark and Company performed services for us this current time?
I want to say this is the 7th year.
17.
Yes, sir.
Is there any,
Requirements to go out for different.
Yeah.
Or was it just-
Well, with the professional service, there isn't a requirement, and I know I've let the court know in the past that Singleton is just, they're getting started. They're very familiar with our huge CAFR, and it just is to our benefit right now. And I'm not saying that we're not gonna go out in future, but it's just to our benefit to have them so familiar with our CAFR and our departments and be able to get into more of our departments in the future. And so that's what we've been working with them on, because every year they keep moving more and more into our policies and procedures.
so your recommendation is that we,
We stay with them.
approve this agreement? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, any other questions? Entertain a motion at this time?
Entertain a motion to keep Singleton and Clark as our, auditors?
For fiscal year 2021 audit?
Yeah.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, agenda item number 18, Expo request for pavilion fee waiver from Beeville Independent School District for the A.C. Jones High School prom on May 1, 2021. Mr. Rodriguez, you're filling in for Mrs. Alanis this morning.
Yes, sir, good morning. Good morning,
Good
Judge
morning.
and Court. Wally Rodriguez, Expo Promotional Director. So what we have on the agenda today is a request for the fee waiver for A.C. Jones. Respectfully, I'd like the court to consider our relationship with these guys every year. The senior class does utilize our areas for whatever event that they have going on, but mostly in the book, what they have for sure every year will be the arena for graduation. Now they pay us out, whether they use the facility or not. There's been twice in the last 5 years that I know of that we've, actually put in together some comp time, and they've actually, paid us out, and they've used our manpower. The other 3 years, they pay us out without us having to prepare or prepare the facility or use any of our own time. And so, with this year, one thing we want to consider is that they use their funding, each graduating class uses their own funding that they raise themselves to cover some of these costs. And with COVID-19, that means they've had no chance to, raise any funding. And so they've resorted to using an open-air pavilion, in their suits, in their dresses, and all kinds of stuff, just because that's where they are. And so, that's kind of where we are. And so my recommendation would be that we wait and see for them.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Any, discussion?
I move to approve this waiver.
Second thing.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you, Wally, for bringing this to us. We're glad that, we're gonna be hosting the prom this year, and I know that they're gonna make it a great one. So,
I think so too, sir.
that's wonderful. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception.
What is y'all's theme this year?
Not me.
Oh,
no,
That's him.
for the high school.
Yeah, it'll be for high school prom.
You could have made it
No,
up.
Their
I know they are.
theme is.
That's a big negative.
I think we'll put her in charge, though.
Oh, God.
Is that the form of a motion? No.
No, sir. No, please.
Don't worry, don't worry. Moving on to agenda item number 19, Expo request for auditorium fee waiver from B Area Go Texan Scholarship Committee for their annual crawfish boil on April 24th, 2021. Ms. Burkhart,
Yes, sir.
and you're joined with.
Amanda DeBravo.
Yes, this is my partner in crime.
Okay.
Good morning, commissioners, public. We are, members on the board of the B County Area Go Texas Committee. Every year, we have two major fundraisers. We, in the past, were part of the Western Week thing, but we have, since divided our group into separate things now. But we still, the main purpose that we serve in our county, we are in conjunction with the Houston Livestock Association, their rodeo every year. We fall under their nonprofit 501 program. We raise funds for seniors of B County only. What we do in our county stays in our county. Because we do all the things that the Houston Livestock Association asked us to do, which we jumped through a few of their hoops, we then qualify two seniors from our county. We qualify for two, they range yearly on donations, as of course, they can be anywhere as least as $15,000 up to $20,000 for two individuals within the county. They are seniors only. They can come from Beeville, A.C. Jones, they can come from Pettis, or they can come from Skidmore. We try every year to keep our scholarships, including the Houston monies, in around $50,000 a year. Those are all to seniors that go to B County. We use the expo often. We are always been so grateful for the things that you've done for us and given us waivers in the past, and we gracefully throw ourselves on the mercy of the court that we may ask again this year, especially, it's going to be hard times asking other, we ask for donations from the county. Mr. Fadias himself is a great partner with us and helps us out with different things that we can auction off. That is how we raise our money. With the sales of the tickets, we can usually cover our catering and our food. And then the we have a live auction and a silent auction. And the monies we recoup from that is how we are able to give our monies out to the seniors here in the county. Got any questions?
Let me just say that last year, we were not able to have
No,
any
of
of our
course, nobody was,
fundraisers
yeah.
because of COVID, and we still paid out all of our scholarships. So we're really trying very hard this year to recoup some of that money so that we can continue the same amount of scholarships we've been giving the previous years.
Thank you, Beth.
Make a motion to waive the fee for the expo use for the Go Texas fundraiser.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I I have a motion and a second. Further discussion, I would just confirm that fee waiver isn't including a deposit waiver or was it cleaning fee or maintenance fee or?
Correct.
Okay.
We have a revolving.
Yeah, you probably already,
They have a deposit.
Revolving, but there will be a maintenance fee of $200.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Yeah, we understand there are some things that we have to do. We're talking about that big, large sum that.
Yep, we'll get rid of that one for
I
you.
appreciate everything you guys do in the community, and, we know it's a volunteer position that you and your fellow board members undertake. It's very
Thank you, sir.
important. It's very good that y'all are here, so thank y'all.
We appreciate that, thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, ladies, once again. Moving on, agenda item number 20, IBM Service Suite Contract for Hardware and Software Coverage between NetData and B County. Mr. Oliver, is this your?
It's just the annual housekeeping,
Okay.
No changes?
no change.
Move to approve as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. 1 minute to take a note, and then moving on to agenda item number 21, update, discussion, and possible action regarding B County COVID-19 status preparedness and contingency planning. I'm not going to steal any of your thunder this week, Mr. Willow or Mr. Garza. I'm going to turn the floor over to y'all for any report that you'd like to give. Mr. Garza, the record will reflect, is pointing at Mr. Willow to get up to the podium. It's good to be king, right?
Hello again, Mike Willow, COVID response coordinator. A lot of things been going on this couple weeks. The infamous COVID trailer that we have has made a couple road trips. We went to Pettis, and we, the coalition, with Spawn Hospital and myself and a few other volunteers went out there and vaccinated over 50 people, which we were quite pleased about that. We are turning our efforts now to try to get everybody 16 and over vaccinated. We're afraid we hit the saturation point, to be honest with you, and we were open Saturday to allow people that work the weekends to come and get their shot. We only had 200 participants, and that's a little bit generous. It was around 190 or something like that. But we're making every effort to get the vaccine in arms. At the present time, I have one person that is on the list that we need to make a home visit to. My best recollection, we've made over 200 home visits. So we're hitting every area. We've expanded, the hospital has an exorbitant amount of vaccine that they need to get rid of. And so we're going to be going outside the county, offering our services to Live Oak, to McMullen, to New Oasis, to San Pat, whoever needs us. We went, and with the help of the judge, we went to the independent school districts in B County, asking them if they want to start trying to give their students 16 and over a shot. So far, I've only heard from Skidmore. They said that they would like not to use the services because they feel if anybody needed it, when we had our places in Skidmore, had our vaccine clinics, they would have showed up there. So I'm still waiting to hear from the other 3 independent school districts. But we're on the move, we're working it, we're having fun. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. If not, I'll be happy to go sit down.
Do you have any questions?
One question. At what point do you feel like we've accomplished herd immunity in B County?
Frankly, I don't think we'll ever hit it because I believe you have to have 70% of your county vaccinated. And at the present time, and I'm sorry I don't have the figures, since it's now 16 and above, we're at like 28% of B County being vaccinated. Now, when it was 65 and older, we were at over 65%. But once they opened up, you know, overall in B County, we're, I don't believe we're even 30% yet.
And that doesn't count for people that had COVID and have a natural immunity now possibly.
Well, the thing is that they catch it again. So there is no, even when you get the vaccine, rest assured, there's a possibility you will get COVID. What the benefit of the vaccine is, the ones that are out, 3 choices, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, they are all 100% to keep you out of the hospital and 100% from minimizing your effects of having COVID. So, but there's no guarantee you'll never get the COVID. It's gonna end up, my opinion, that it's gonna be just like the flu shot coming every year. And I believe we've all said that it's gonna, because it mutates just like the flu does. Unfortunately, the one that they're looking at, one of the mutations of the COVID virus is attacking 40 and below, and not the elderly. So, one of the benefits of being an old man, I guess. So, the 40 and below are the ones that are being targeted by that vaccine.
That's a good question, an interesting question, and I'm not gonna ask you to, about it any more than this. Do we know if this, Texas Department of State Health Services has started to issue any, you know, statement? I mean, they're our epidemiologists, right? So they're the entity that will be making a determination of, does herd immunity exist? Is that something, is that anything that you've heard or seen come through from Dr. Cuevas or Dr. Pro or anything at this time?
No, and the discussion has never been the herd immunity for us, because we're on the field, we're not looking at they look at the big picture. We're looking at getting the shot in the arm.
I haven't heard anything from the state on how that's
But I
gonna
could definitely
look.
ask them.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to know. I think it'd be good to, is that something that the state's even, is that a metric because it's something that we're all thinking about, I think, the public, we hear it on the news all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But is it something that the experts are even thinking about? Like, is that a realistic, you know, goal that
I'll watch it.
State Health Services?
It's an excellent goal. Realistic? I doubt it, because you have a lot of the anti-vaccinated folks that don't want to do it. Well over 30% of the population. So,
That amazes me, how many people do not want to take the shot.
and even though we've given over 40,000 shots by now, I don't want to say the majority, but a great deal amount is from people outside the county. You know, we still have people coming from Houston, San Antonio, Austin. One of the big things is for like second doses. San Antonio gave, when it first started, 7,000 vaccines. And they couldn't get the second doses. So they had to look elsewhere to get them. And that's where we got a big majority of our folks that come down here. Yeah. And if you don't get it within the 3 weeks that they want, it's okay. You have 90 days, if not more, from your first shot to get the second vaccine. So it's not oh my God, I missed it in 3 weeks, never mind, it's no good anymore. No, the experts are saying that it's 90 days.
Thank you, Mr. Willow. Mrs. Cantu, do we know, does the county know where we're at with respect to receipt of the remaining 70% or 60, 70%, was it 80%? Initial 20% was on the CARES Act funding reimbursement?
No, we have not received anything additional than what the first drop is.
Okay, so, you know, we made our request and we're still waiting to, and that's going through TDM or?
TDM.
Okay, so that, with, you know, when we were talking earlier, the ARP will be directly with the federal government. This
Right.
one,
Yes,
the
sir.
CARES Act funneled through the state first, so. And
Right,
the
so
deadline's
that's gonna
coming
be
up at the end of
different.
the month for us to get paperwork in, but I think we've already had our paperwork
Yes.
in for quite some time. I know Ms. Utudio has been working very diligently on tracking that.
Definitely, yes. The last of her reporting was, which was the last word she got, that we were able to claim, our law enforcement, hours for that. So that was the last of what she submitted for her reporting.
And just to remind the court, so our initial CARES Act, allowable refund request was relatively, nominal. Part of that was from guidance that we had received from TDM during the process. And then in the 11th hour, they said, you know what? And it could have been all the other counties are doing it this other way, or they could have said, well, we just see that there's this other opportunity. So they came back to us and they said this additional component of expense that you incurred is recoverable. So amend your request, which we did, which took us from being in the $300,000 range, I think, of expenditures to our max, what we're allowed. So we're waiting on a substantial sum of money somewhere in the realm of $600,000 to $700,000, $600,000 to $700,000, theoretically. Is there anything further anybody has to say with respect to COVID? Once again, I commend, Mr. Willow, Mr. Garza, and Krista Spahn, and all the volunteers, as well as KCOST, and the Sheriff's Office, Beeville Police Department, Assistant Chief Cantu has become so passionate and interested in organizing and traffic flow. It's really quite rewarding to see these folks work. So thank you guys for everything that you're doing. Yes, sir.
Beeville Volunteer Fire Department.
Yes, sir. The volunteer fire department. Yeah.
And their wives, because the wives are out there also.
Chief Bill and Gwyneth, we really appreciate everything you guys are doing. And for everybody else that I didn't specifically name, it's not intentional. There's a large group of individuals, employees, county employees, city employees, straight volunteers, hospital employees that are doing all the dirty work every day to try to provide this to individuals in the community that want it. And so that's really great. Thank you. Moving on. Agenda item number 22, report and possible action on recent IT issues impacting county operations. At this point in time, I'm going to pull the B County Commissioners Court into executive session. Public notice is given that the B County Commissioners Court may elect to go into executive session anytime during the meeting to discuss matters listed on the agenda pursuant to the authority granted under the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Immediately before any executive session, the specific section or sections of the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, that provides statutory authority will be announced. On completion of the executive session, the Commissioners Court may, in an open session, take such action as appropriate on items discussed in an executive session. We're moving under Texas Government Code, Section 551.089, and the time is 11:03 a.m. And I appreciate everybody being here today. You're welcome to hang out in the hallways. We should not be too very long, but we might be all day.
Don't say that.
Lunch coming in.
That's right. Barbecue. There will be food. I